Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Reginald Holloway, and welcome back to Outreach with Reggie. That is Outreach with Reggie, where I go over not only self-discovery, but also how do you make effective change within your community. I also highlight how I make effective change in my community. And today, this is going to be different. This is going to be something that you can take with you, actually. And this is the topic of today will be how to find your voice. Now, the first thing when you think about finding your voice is, what is your voice truly? Who are you? Who are you when you speak on things? Or in the means of becoming a motivational speaker, public speaking, speaking in front of your class, in the workplace, just finding your voice is the first step, I'd say, to making effective changes within your community. So, to get started, the first thing I have down right now is simply, give me a second here. What is your expertise, right? What are you qualified to talk about? What are things that grant you, or why should someone choose you to believe in, right? Or choose to listen to you, or choose to gain some of information or understanding from you. So what is your expertise? What is your niche? What is that thing you're going to be attacking? And a lot of those leads itself to that question. There's a lot of things that you can say. If you're a athlete, you're going to speak on some variation of sports, that being basketball, football, soccer. If you're a cook, you're going to know, you can speak about ingredients. You can speak about different sauces and marinades and how it gels well with this dish and what this vegetable accumulates to this meal. If you're a teacher, you have different forms of subjects that you could talk about, from math, science, history. All those things are what would give someone the expertise, quote unquote, to honestly talk about things. But I'm here to tell you right now, the easiest way to say this is, you are already an expert. You are already an expert. And the way that you're an expert is, you are an expert of your life. No one knows your life like you except for God. But for the sake of today's video, including God, you know you. Right? You know what makes you happy. You know what makes you sad. You know what makes you question things. You know what makes all the quirks about you. You're significantly insignificant. You are a beautiful creature, and you are loved. But most importantly, you know who you are at your core. And that's very important these days. It's very important to get to understand, to know you, to love you, to understand you. Because at that point, you can be able to illustrate that to someone else. And it's important that you do so. And a lot of times, as that is important, you lose yourself in that because you don't quite know who you are yet. And that's okay. Many people spend all of their lives trying to figure out who they are. The journey of self-discovery is a never-ending process. Sure, there's ages where you find yourself in a state of maturity, but let me shift those words around and not call it maturity, and call it more so, you are shifting your perspective on life, when with experience comes wisdom or understanding of where you were through those journeys. And as that circulates, comes a new appreciation for what you went through. But overall, who you are, who you get to be, the things that you've gone through, as you illustrate that and find your voice to not only speak to your friends, your family, your community at large, if you're a community leader, if you're a public speaker, you're able to illustrate these things in such a way of who you are that you are able to connect with everybody because you have an honest perspective of yourself. Even if you don't. Even if you say, you know what, Reggie? I don't know who I am. That's okay. Because there's several methods to get to that point. Take some time to pay attention. Take some time. Take at least 1 hour out of each day. If you're a religious person, if you're spirituality, spend 1 hour with God. Talk to Him. Have a conversation. Sit down. And just be like, hey, and just treat it as if you're laying it all out on the line and not hiding anything. And He will reveal to you. If you're the latter and not as spiritually inclined to do so, just spend 1 hour with yourself. Find some time. Get off the phone. Remove yourself from technology and really just buckle down on who you are regarding being an expert of you. Once you're an expert of you, then you go on to be an expert of so many other stuff. All the things you're passionate about. Because then you'll know what you're passionate about. What is your passion? And how does that fuel the knowledge of who you are? But yes, I can get into that a little bit more, but for the sake of this video, I'll get into some more stuff. So my second segment is, who is your audience? This goes into what I usually do. As I've stated before, I am a public speaker and a youth advocate. So it's very important to know who is my audience. For instance, my audience is 9 times out of 10 going to be with youth. Youth who are going through that phase in life where they're not know where they are. Usually at the time they're transitioning into adulthood and they need a bit of guidance. So I provide perspective on how I've went through not only the foster care system, but also who I am directly as of right now. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. But I provide perspective that makes it easier for the youth that's coming after me to let them know that it's perfectly fine if they don't know where they're going. But it's important to know your audience because it helps understand what to say, how best to serve them when it comes to community and understanding and providing insight to where you can make significant impact. But what is impact, you ask? Impact is being able to not only change the dynamics of the current state of their communities that you serve, but you're also inspiring at least one. Impact does not always lead itself to be as big as social media portrays it to be. You can have impact on one person, and that one person can be as significant as 10, 100, 1,000, even 1,000,000 people and more. I believe there's close to 10 billion people on this planet. Think of that. 10 billion people. And you never know who's watching when you're on social media like you are right now. By the way, like, comment, and subscribe to Outreach with Reggie. But you never know who's watching. You never know who you're affecting. That being, if you are doing public speaking like myself, if you're at the school and you're worried about presenting to the class, if you're worried about presenting to your teacher, your parents, community activities such like church, such like anything you are attached to or you're subscribing to when regarding community. It's important to know your audience so you can have that significant impact that you're searching for and the means to the things that you're valuing. And along with that, it's important you know this thing right here. Come closer, a little bit closer, because this is important. I want you to write this down. Strategic sharing. Yes. Now, what does that mean? Strategic sharing is, it's very important to see what are you sharing with your community, with others. How much of you are you giving to everybody? And how much are you giving to yourself in the process? Sure, it's a trust thing, and it comes within time of being able to share bits and pieces of who you are. As you get to learn yourself, as you get to get familiar with yourself, as you get familiar with yourself more and more, you get to learn pieces about yourself that you are more than willing to give to everybody. And some pieces, definitely, I will advocate, belong to solely you. Not everybody is qualified or deserving of to know every single thing about you. Mainly because you have to dedicate time for you, energy in you, pouring into you, because before you can serve the communities that you want to serve, before you can serve the place that you want to be, or be at any capacity to be anything to anybody regarding all the things that you want to do and have desires to, you have to give into yourself. So a part of strategic sharing is, as you go out to do speeches, as you go out to use your voice in the communities that you deem necessary, that you have value in, it's important that you use strategic sharing and realize your story, your passions, your goals, your dreams. Those are yours. Those belong to you. You keep those right in here, right in the heart, right? Tuck it right in. You know, put it right here, tuck it right in. I'll go about it like this. Imagine you're at a speech and you decide to say, yes, my name is insert name, and we'll say the audience is like, we'll say teenagers. And you say, yeah, I'm such and such, and I punch people for a living, or I do bodily harm to everybody who I see. You know, back then I had a real problem with this, or something that's very age inappropriate to where it's not fitting. And it gets gruesome. In the more detail you go into it, and you start to get gruesome, and you start to get very unknowingly, and as you unlock your trauma, I've seen this before active, where you unlock your trauma while delivering a speech. You feel like, oh, this is fine, but maybe your speech is triggering somebody else, or your language or your deliverance is triggering another person in the crowd that had nothing to do with your experience. I used this expression in my last speech. If you don't take care of the things that you don't deal with, they're going to unravel themselves in more ways than one. And this expression, carefully, I want to use. If you're not careful, you're going to bleed on people that did not cut you. And what I mean by that is, everyone has trauma. Everyone has a significant amount of trauma throughout their lives. Either in the beginning, adolescent years, adult years, or there has been a significant event that has happened that has hit you or harmed you. And I take back my blanket statement. Not everybody has trauma. Maybe you're the lucky ones that have been a sufficient or have had a sufficient life to where everything is scot-free, and that's perfectly fine. But for the ones who do not or have not had the luxury of that experience, it is very imperative that you are able to identify your trauma, which is this next segment, identifying your trauma. are identifying the things that you put on the back burner. I'll be fully transparent. For me, I loved to eat, and that was my coping mechanism to my trauma. Along with that, I dealt with very bad trust issues, and I allowed things to silence my voice. Very quiet, very introverted for a long time. Didn't care who perceived me any other way because I was perfectly fine going through life unseen. It wasn't until I confronted my trauma, and how I confronted it was simply putting trust not only, and this is my thing, putting my trust in the Lord and understanding that it's okay what I went through. Coming to terms, coming at peace and realizing that it did happen and it's okay. It happened. And that season is over. It happened. It's very important that it did happen. And I have to come to reality that it did happen. That was an event, and it was not my fault. And it's okay. When you go through something, it's not your fault. But here's the trick to that. Yes, it's not your fault. And what happened to you is horrible. But you have to find a place of forgiveness to forgive not only the person or the event. Find forgiveness in yourself to forgive the event and then for you, and forgive yourself for the participation of it. And coming to terms with the fact that that chapter, that traumatic event, is a chapter in the past. There's a new day. It happened in 2015. It's 2025 now. It happened in 1972. It's 2025 now. It happened in 2024. It's 2025 now. I'm not saying that time heals. It definitely does. But people get stuck in that time machine of trauma. And they just get stuck in 2024, in 2023. Heck, in 1986. And it's very important that you understand that as you are stuck in that time period dealing with the trauma, the world keeps spinning. 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 And as soon as you snap out of that trauma, you were in 86, it's 2030 now. But what does that have to do with the voice? Your audience. They're trusting in you. Family, friends, community, even yourself. The hurt that you felt was real. But at the same time, the young man, the young woman, the young person that happened to is depending on you of right now. The reason why they're still here. Because they are 9 times out of 10 depending on you and believing in what you are right now. Which leads me to my final segment. Find your why when it comes to finding your voice. So we talked about finding you. How are you an expert? You're an expert of you. You're qualified to be in those rooms that you want to be in when it comes to public speaking, making an impact in your community, making an impact in your school, your home, your after-school activities. We talked about who's your audience, which falls in line with the same communities that you're a part of or that you're subscribed to. We talked about trauma, which I'll talk about in a later video. But we talked about where you may not feel qualified to speak, where you may feel silence, where you may feel like there's a lack of understanding, where you may feel like the world does not know what you're dealing with, and you don't believe that when you use your voice, anybody's going to listen. So within this last point I'm going to make, I'm saying to you, understand that it's all right. Understand that it's okay. When you come down to it, when you break it all down, every day there's someone talking about something that's going to talk about anything, which leads to nothing. And what I mean by that is, there's 1,000,001 things talked about, 1,000,001 subjects. News stories happen every day like this. When local news happens, it comes at you. Boom. If you're like, hopefully I'm not doxing myself, but if you're like me in Georgia, Fox 5, Channel 2 happens. There's always something new every day. Right? Social media, somebody's doing something. Your favorite celebrity, your favorite, somebody's doing something that's going to cause for a conversation. And I'd say to that, social media is probably the single most destructive. It can be, there's two sides to this. It can be destructive when you get into comparison. You feel like your voice is not good enough because people are looking for the trend. You feel like you're not good enough because now you're comparing, hey, this is not expensive clothing. I don't have buku money. I'm not where I want to be. I'm not ideally who I am as a man or as a woman or as a person or as a, I'm not where I want to be. So how am I qualified for the rooms to get there? And I'm here to tell you, no one in history has it figured out. I'll give you a few examples. Robert Downey Jr. has been acting for longer than I'm 26. He's been acting since probably the 80s, right? He's been acting forever. We'll say like 40 plus years, right? He's just got an Oscar last year. Either this year or last year, 2025, 2024. That is exceptionally a long time to be in a field and not receive anything. If awards is, I'm going to say that for another time, but if awards is something you're chasing. I believe there was a fashion designer that didn't even receive his just due for acting, for fashion until they were in their 60s. Heck, I remember this comedian by the name of Leslie Jones. She didn't get her big break until she was 50. So there's several amount of those instances where you can't look at the people like Oprah who's rich beyond their imaginations, Elon Musk, or any, insert your favorite celebrity. Because 9 times out of 10, where you see them right now, they've been here forever. I remember seeing Michael B. Jordan in The Wire. If anybody's old enough to remember The Wire, he's been here that long. That was early 2000s. And people know him now, worldwide love for the movie Creed, which happened, give or take, almost 20, close to 20 years, give or take, after The Wire, season 1, because he was only in a couple episodes. But just understand, you are exactly where you need to be right now. If you have goals, write them down. If you have dreams, make them important to you and only you. You do not have to prove to anybody where you are right now that you're going to be destined for things. You owe it to yourself to make it a mission every day to work significantly where you want to be. You owe it to nobody else. Not mom, not dad, not sibling, not family at all, not your community. You aim to serve these communities, but just remember, going back to using your voice is what matters to you and how effective you want these things to be true. Because it's important to know where you want to be. How do you want to serve? Why do you want to do it? Some people love to serve for the money. Some people love to give in these communities, be like, I did good. It brings a sense of pride. You have to be very careful about being prideful, but we'll talk about that in another time. I'd say right now, finding your why and understanding it's okay. It's a journey. Nipsey Hussle said it himself. It's a journey, not a race. So don't burn yourself out. Endurance wins. Not might, not force. Endurance. How can you endure the tests and trials of life? But lastly, I'm going to wrap this up because I like to ramble. I appreciate you joining me for another edition of Outreach with Reggie. Outreach with Reggie. And to end this video off, I am going to give you a bit of I did a speech long ago for University of Georgia's law program. They have a beautiful law program with judicial clerks where I share my experience turning 18 and about the extended care program. But the real message is me using my voice, my story, and coming to terms with my life where it was then and the peace that I have now from it. And I just want to share this with you because this is one of the ways I say, no matter if you're cooking to serve, volunteer work, giving back to the homeless, talking to schools, talking in front of your class, talking with family members or friends, or just helping attribute to the human experience, there's no one way to serve your community. But with that being said, I have been Reginald Holloway, and I appreciate you so much. Here's the video. Take care. Till next time. Peace out.